Yeah.
So here we are.
Oh boy! I guess we're here.
That was a wake-up call.
We have, this is probably roughly our last hour or last session of this weekend. Whatever that means. And we'll see what happens. So you see how all these different sort of places we've gone with this and different aspects, subtleties we've explored of this, never depart from the soul event. This simple actuality that is here is all these ways that we've talked about it without actually being any of these ways, without ever actually being anything other than just itself, just what it is. And that's the very slippery nature of what this is that it can seem to be all these different, incredibly, vastly different aspects and modes and flavors and subtleties without ever actually being anything. It's very much like a dream. A dream can seem to be anything, but it's always just a dream. It never becomes anything more than a dream, never becomes less than a dream, even though its very nature is to present us all this bewildering spectrum of characteristics and so on. And of course, we experience the same thing here.
One of the things that is always very subtly or not so subtly present is you're looking at all this and you're becoming aware and is the sense that I am looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
I am
Absolutely.
seeing it. I'm getting it.
Absolutely.
I'm getting it. Which would seem to be a very subtle reinforcing of that notion. And I'm just wondering about your thoughts about
of which notion?
that I am, that there's a separate I.
Well,
that's viewing
you
this.
are what's seeing it, but it's not separate. The mistake is not that it is not that you are what's seeing it. The mistake is that it's separate. And that you are what's seeing it is not a problem. But try and find that separation. Where's the boundary? Where's the moat? Where's the wall? Where's the discontinuity between the seer and the seen? Is the seen over there and is the seer over here, and is there some gap or vacuum or discontinuity or some impediment or some barrier or some edge that is findable anywhere? There is let's say a perspective of seeing, there is a perspective of the seen, and if you look closely, don't you just find that they are aspects of a spectrum which is absolutely continuous, rather than separate entities which are somehow one over here and one over there with never the twain shall meet kind of a thing? I mean, in actuality, the seer and the seen are in the same place. How could you see anything unless you were engaged with it? Seeing and seer and seen have to meet. How could I see you if you were over there and the seeing was over here? There has to be, the apparition of you has to meet the seer with absolute intimacy for seeing to occur. It's like a dream. The dreamer is not somewhere over here with the dream appearing somewhere over there. How would the dream be seen? The dream is seen by absolute intimacy, by absolute engagement. You'll hear me say this in many contexts, but I'm referring to exactly what we're talking about now, which is that experiencing is by feeling, it's by touch, it's by absolute intimate engagement. Experience is experienced like braille. The consciousness feels energy characteristics, and it feels that feel means contact, feel means integration. And in fact, putting it that way sounds like there's consciousness over here and energy over here that somehow meets, but it's not like that. It's more like this spontaneously manifests itself as consciousness experiencing characteristics, but it's more of an instantaneous accuracy of one thing rather than something that is here pre-existing and something that is here pre-existing somehow meeting. So the seer and the seen are co-created in the instant by actuality. Actuality presents itself as that apparent spectrum, as that sort of virtual smearing that shows up as all of this apparent diversity. I mean, another aspect of this, there's the spectrum of degrees of subjectivity and objectivity. There's also the spectrum, as you might say, the horizontal spectrum of degrees of differentiation. So there's all these different colors, all these different locations, all these different, tastes, all these different sounds, all the, the vast range of possible different qualities that present within the field of experience, none of which are anything more than the field itself, none of which are actually separate entities or conditions, even though they present that way. They present as absolutely differentiated, but they're always just this. They don't depart from just being presence itself. So this presence presents as subject and object. It presents as this vast spectrum of range of possible characteristics, and yet there's only one thing. It presents as this vast expansion while just being an absolute singularity. Just presence seems to present itself to itself as this incredible unfolded readout. That's what I mean. You heard me say earlier, and you probably heard me say many times. It can present itself as anything, but it never departs from itself. So it's always just this, even though it's presenting itself as all this. So all of this readout, all this diversity is just this singularity of you, of your being, of your actuality, of what is.
So we're in absolute intimacy with everything in our experience.
Correct. It's not even that you are in intimacy with everything. You are that intimacy, and you are everything. And you are the apparent you that's experiencing all that. Every aspect of that, of these various degrees of apparent polarity, is you. Like in a dream. In a dream, there's just you there, and yet that you that is there presents itself as if it was all of this event and qualities and so on and so forth. As a seer and a seen and all these qualities, but it's just you there. It's just the dreamer, the dreaming. So it looks like all this, but it never departs from itself. It never becomes anything more than just this presence. And the presence never becomes more or less by what the readout looks like. I mean, that was our theme from all day yesterday. What this is not improved by what it looks like, and is not damaged or diminished by what it looks like. So what seems to happen, what seems to be going on, is of absolutely no importance. It doesn't matter at all, because it's not actually affecting anything. Like a dream doesn't affect a dreamer. You can have absolutely horrible dreams of burning and disasters and horror shows, and the dreamer doesn't get hurt. You can have wonderful, beautiful, spectacular, fulfilling, amazing things occur in a dream, and the dreamer doesn't get improved. It's still just the dreamer. Right? It's a zero-sum game. Nothing is achieved. Nothing is lost. Nothing can be gained. Nothing can be lost. So that makes it loose. That makes it free and easy. That makes it carefree. It doesn't matter what happens or how it is or how you engage with it, because nothing will be lost and nothing can be gained. But then nothing needs to be gained, because this is an absolute fullness. Your experience is completely full, spontaneously, effortlessly, of everything. The entire universe is yours. It freely appears continually refreshed, continually new. And so you are a complete fullness. You need nothing. There's nothing lacking. There's nothing missing. So there's just the play of exploring this indeed the range of this inconceivable richness and lusciousness of all of these astounding qualities.
That was the most beautiful sound. It reminded me of being in the harbor in Maine as a child. It's really gorgeous.
But the harbor in Maine is, this is. Another interesting aspect of all this is things are completely interchangeable. What anything is exactly what anything else is. So even though things present themselves as so utterly different, so utterly other than each other, in actual fact, what anything is what everything else is.
Is that because it's made up of is?
Yes. The sight of this is made of vision. The sight of you is made of vision. So the sight of you and the sight of this is the same thing. They're interchangeable. Your different presentations are the same thing. And all presentation is infinitely differentiated within itself. So in other words, no matter where I look within the field of vision, I find difference. I can look at 2 points that are completely next to each other and they'll be different. So I can say, well, you look different than you, but your left side looks different than your right side, and this part of your right side looks different than that part of your right side, and this part in between those two parts looks different than either of those, and this part here looks different than that. So there's endless, I can find as much difference as I want, or I can zoom out and say, but all that difference is just you, so it's all the same. Or I can zoom out farther and say, all that difference is just you all, so it's all the same. I can zoom out farther and say all of that difference is just the field of vision, so it's the same. And you can zoom out farther and say all of it is just me, so it's the same. So it's this presentation of infinite degrees of differentiation of one thing that never becomes anything else. Even though it presents as infinitely differentiated, it never becomes anything other than this one thing, this actuality. Yeah.
Well, you use an example of dreams as not real, I guess. And
well, no, dreams are totally real. Dreams are completely real.
Well, what I wanted to having my point was that I've had several dreams throughout my life that have been revelatory.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I guess, well, why I say you don't think dreams are important is because I thought they were very, very helpful for me in getting by some difficult situations.
Uh-huh.
They were, yeah. So, I don't know where I'm going with this, except that I thought you were saying that they're just a dream.
They are just a dream.
Yeah.
But in being just a dream, they are a direct and naked presentation of absolute actuality. And as such, they are inconceivably profound, inconceivably meaningful, inconceivably powerful.
I didn't hear that.
Oh, and as such, since they are a direct presentation of actuality, they are inconceivably profound, inconceivably powerful, inconceivably meaningful.
Yes.
But that doesn't apply just to dreams, it applies to this, and it applies to everything. Since everything is a presentation of this transcendental actuality, everything embodies the full meaningfulness, the full intelligence, the full cross-correspondence, or let's say meaningful interrelationship of all the aspects of this that it consists of.
My mind is getting tired.
Yeah.
Good. Good riddance. Minds aren't of much use anyway.
One experiment I've done, like with in all different sense fields, is to look at something and go deeper into it. It's
Sure.
more than the surface stuff. And I always reach a point. You say that it just keeps opening. It keeps opening. For me, without microscopes or whatever, without just using the limitations of my own observations, I guess. It's always hit a point where there's sort of I hit a place that's opaque.
Okay.
And it's not known, but it doesn't continue to open up. This becomes a question mark.
Sure. But it never stabilizes. You never hit any certainty.
Oh, definitely not. That's why I leave the certainty.
Well, that's what the keep going part is. Keep going doesn't mean necessarily keep going in the direction you thought you were going. It means keep going in an absolute unresolvability of the next instant it presents it with different nuance. All there is different nuance. We think of it as having a pseudo-coherence of vector, of quality, like, oh, now I'm being with it spatially in different nuance, or I'm being with it texture with a different nuance or whatever. But all that's just spin doctoring. It's just different nuance is all that it continually presents from instant to instant.
Yeah.
And it can seem to be a direction, it can seem to be an expansion along a certain direction, let's call it, or an expansion in sideways between directions or whatever. I'm using the word direction very loosely,
right.
In terms of different vectors. The different ways of navigating this, let me give you an example. It can seem like, imagine a cartoon, like a literal movie cartoon where there's a series of frames, right? And so you're one frame and it looks like one thing. Say it looks like you're going through a doorway of a spaceship into outer space. And then a little while along the movie goes, and all of a sudden you go through another doorway in a planet into another dimension where there's aliens, and then you go to another doorway and it's this and that and the other. So it seems as if you're traveling in space, and it can seem as if you're traveling in dimensions, but all you're actually doing is shifting from one frame to another, which has different quality and nuance presented. So so you can seem to zoom in on something in terms of focusing in on it. You can seem to zoom out on it in certain ways. You can seem to look at it from what it looks like to what it feels like as a thought or whatever. But all of that, and it seems like you're moving in ways that have an internal coherence in terms of the field you're with. But all you're doing actually is just moving from one non-dimensional frame to another non-dimensional frame without any directionality. I don't know if I can communicate that very well. I don't know if I can communicate that in the way you can get it.
Maybe,
Anything is one step away from anything else. You know, a particular sight is one step away from a particular thought, which is one step away from that same sight zoomed in, which is one step away from that same sight zoomed in, which is one step away from a sound, which is one step away from
oh yeah, I was actually,
stuckness, which is one step away from a fantasy, which is one.
yeah, I'm thinking, well, two things come up when you say that, is that one is that maybe at some point I'm substituting a thought about opaqueness for the actual experience. I was actually staying within, like when I experiment with it, I stay within that same sense field.
Right.
You know, for instance,
But sense fields are imaginary. They have no coherence. There is no actual sense of vision. The sense of vision is a very, very loose amalgamation of inconceivably incoherent dimensions.
yeah, can I give an example?
Sure.
Like of how I do it, like I say, if I look at the floor, I think, and especially from the Spanish point, it's quite beautiful because I see the reflection of that room on the floor. Floor is solid, I mean, just by, in a conventional way. But I'm seeing this depth to something that shouldn't have depth. And that's really interesting. And then I could look closer and I see the outline of the door, its reflection. It's gradually, there's not a demarcation. It's like this. And if I go into that demarcation, I mean, I can go that way for a little while, but at a certain point I can't go further. It doesn't feel like I can go further visually like that in terms of the appreciation or the infinite opening of that detail, if that makes sense.
It does, but visual doesn't exist in a vacuum. Visual coexists with all the other dimensions, and they aren't actually separate dimensions. So when you're doing that, you also think different things. You can be, for example, you can be looking at something that's essentially the same thing, even though the actual experience of seeing it, even though it's the same,
Right.
is subtly different from instant to instant. But the thought stream is continually changing, which is one with the vision changing, because the vision and the
Gotcha.
thought aren't actually, it's not like the vision is here doing one thing and the thought's over here doing another thing, which is a way of thinking of it, but it's not like that.
I know attention arose.
Everything is an aspect of everything else, and it all coexists, and it's all one thing. So when, even if when your thought changes, everything changes, even if nothing else changes. It's difficult to put this clearly, and it's not particularly important too. All this is really about is to notice the incredible non-linearity of thought. We talk about thought, we talk of experience. We talk about experience as if it's divided into these sense fields, and they're actual entities that actually exist in a certain way. But that's a lie. It's not actually like that. The field of vision is defined into existence. The actuality of the field of vision is a gestalt. It's a coexistence of infinite dimensions that have nothing to do with each other, that more or less come in and come out and coexist to various degrees, and then diverge in various degrees, and so on and so forth. So it's an infinitely multidimensional multimedia presentation that never stabilizes as being any one particular way, and it's always coming in and out, composed of literally infinite dimensions of experiential texture. And the mind parses that down to, there's a field of vision present, there's a field of hearing present, there's a field of touch, and blah, 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 blah. All our conventional categorizations, with a lot left over that aren't categorizable. There's a lot of experiences, just weird vibes and moods and nuances.
Yeah, qualities. I mean, qualities start coming out too when I do that, but also,
yeah, exactly.
It's reminding me also when I fall asleep that you start hearing sights and things like that, where they start.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
In other words, this is endlessly nuanced and subtle and multidimensional. It's never just a simple, a simple amalgamation or a simple coincidence of several discrete elements that are sort of sitting politely and stably in their place. It's all, our consciousness effortlessly creates a pseudo presentation of that. It creates a pseudo stability. It creates a pseudo coherence of, there is a field of vision and there is a field of hearing and all this and all that. But the actual experience is much, much looser and stranger and more kaleidoscopic and multidimensional than that. And none of it is anything at all other than this. All of this, I mean, it's very irrational, so it's, it's continually stymieing to the mind, but that's not important because the mind doesn't need to get it. That all of this infinite diversity and diversification is actually one thing and never departs from itself. Without there being any paradox there, without there being any, problem with that at all. It's completely irrational. There's no way for the mind to wrap itself around that, but it happens to be this simple fact. It happens to be actually like that. And that fact, like we started off talking about this weekend, this sole fact is everything, literally, and is also the sole point of focus, the sole condition of interest, the sole thing to engage with or address in all of this quest of spiritual or scientific understanding, or if anyone that really wants to know what reality is, this is where you look. You look at this single event, and it actually is discoverable. It actually is, it can be engaged with most intimately and can discover itself and can recognize itself. What you're experiencing is capable of understanding and fully recognizing what it is, what reality is. Because it is that. It's capable of recognizing that. And this essentially self-recognition, reality recognizing itself, this actuality recognizing what it is. Because this actuality is what's seeing your experience, and this actuality is also what is seen as all of this characteristics. So this actuality recognizing itself, you coming to see what you actually are, which is possible and doable, is the only thing worth doing. And anything else is just running around like a crazy person.
Oh, that's really good news. because remember the eye can't see itself.
The eye can see nothing but itself. The eye has always been seeing itself, but it's capable of seeing itself and not recognizing that it's seeing itself. But the good news is it's capable of seeing itself and recognizing that it's seeing itself. So forget about all that. So here you are. Now what? That's always a question, isn't it? Here I am. Now what?
That's a koan. Now it's like a koan.
Sure. It's an invitation to artful open engagement. An invitation to intelligence.
you no sooner ask the question, here I am, now what? But it's not now.
Right. But here I am, now what? It may not be now, but it's always here I am, now what?
Yeah. But it's sort of a wait and see.
And here it is, now you see it.
Does reflecting on this have any value, or is it just another arising of thought?
Either, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you do it with artfulness and intelligence. So reflecting, if it's done dully or stupidly, relatively, is less valuable than if it's done with inspiration and intelligence and subtlety. And of course, exactly what that consists of and how to do it has to be discovered by doing it. So you discover subtlety by being subtle. Or more precisely, you discover subtlety by being less subtle and stumbling onto subtlety and recognizing it. You learn how to do anything well by doing it badly. And then you discover ways to do it better, maybe. So any approach to this, any engagement with this is a potential event to occasion to learn how to be with it more subtly, more profoundly. And it's down to your own artfulness of being able to enact that.
What do you mean by artfulness again? I mean,
Well, you have to discover what it means.
okay.
You know, artfulness is a skillfulness of engagement. It's a skillfulness of participation with experiencing, with functioning. And one discovers it by discovering it. Everyone has already whatever degree of artfulness we have, and by playing with that and noticing that, one can discover more. One can discover subtlety, one can discover greater sensitivity, and so on and so forth. But, you know, a lot of the aspects that we've been talking about this weekend are avenues for exploration. We've been talking about the way that there's no particular way that things are. Things can be, it's all basically spin doctored into existence. Things can be seen one way, but they can also be seen myriad other ways simultaneously, and no particular way is any truer or less true than any other way. So there's an avenue right there for experimenting with artfulness. You know, how many, if you're used to seeing things a certain way, how skillful are you at being able to see it another way? So, and so you can learn how to navigate, you can explore the art of navigating these different perspectives and the discovery of how arbitrary they are. And so on and so forth. I mean, there's many, you can explore the notion we've been talking about, how this is one thing. There's only one thing here, it's one thing here that happens in one way, and yet it looks like all this. So that's, you can explore that, you can be with that and just explore that in whatever way you seem to be able to approach it or engage with it. And you know, many of all the stuff we've been talking about this week.
Could you give an example of how it can be that it is one way, but it is always?
Well, it's all one here. It's all one here-ness. It's all one presence. It's all one actuality. It's all one experience. It's one experiential field, and yet that experiential field presents as infinitely differentiated.
Presents it.
As infinitely differentiated.
Oh, okay.
There's an infinite range of apparent characteristics presenting with an experience, even though experience is just one thing. It's like what seems to be happening, all the colors and shapes that seem to be present being seen, all the sounds that seem to be being heard, all the sensations that seem to be felt, all the thoughts and ideas and mental perspectives that seem to present themselves. All that incredible variety is just this one present continuum of your single experience. So that's interesting. Maybe. And one of the most powerful aspects of this in terms of actually engaging with it, in terms of working with it, in terms of the yoga of this, is the fact that any engagement with it is engagement with all of it. So when you engage with any portion of it, you're actually engaged with the whole. So there's no limit. Any point of access is a point of access to all of it. So, just for example, feeling presence. Just feel the presence, feel what it means that this is present, that your experience is present. And you can think about it or not, doesn't matter, but just feel that there is presence here. It's undeniable. It's irrational. You can't say what it is. You can't say what presence is, and you can't say how you're feeling it, but you can feel that presence is present. And just that feeling is intelligent engagement. Itself is a learning. That feeling is an exploration, and feeling presence is exploring presence, which is exploring all of reality, because that one thing is everything, and it can be explored just by feeling it. When you feeling something is absolutely intimate engagement. One thing we haven't dwelt on much this weekend, which I've talked about in much more length than other occasions, and I'll talk about a bit now, is that all of this is inconceivably intelligent. This is not a passive or mechanistic or dull event. This is not just here and like a mechanically, like plump, here it is. This is here. It's an inconceivable, it's permeated with and made of pure intelligence. It's permeated by and made of pure information, interrelated information of meaningfulness that is interrelated with itself with an inconceivable intelligence. And what is experiencing this is that intelligence. What is being experienced as characteristics is that intelligence. So the simple presence of engagement with experience is actually intelligence meeting intelligence, which is hyper-intelligent exploration. It's not an intelligence where you need to figure something out or describe something. It's an irrational, immediate, actual intelligence of transcendental knowing. So just feeling presence, feel the presence of experience is like plugging into the mainframe of the supercomputer of reality, and it gives you a download. It shows itself to you, it reveals itself to you irrationally, and not in a way that you can describe or put into words, but still actually and powerfully, palpably. So just feeling experience, or you can notice that you're feeling presence, and that is intelligent engagement. You can look at color. You can just being with the, let's say feeling the presence of any experiential characteristic is plugging into this mainframe of inconceivable intelligent profundity. Looking at a color, hearing a sound. You can listen to the sound of the jet flying by. Just be with the presence of that energy. And it's a pure intelligence. It doesn't make any sense, and you can't put it into words, but nonetheless, it is a profundity that is powerful. It's like taking a seed into yourself that sprouts into amazing profundities.
Yeah, like it lights you up.
Yeah. And that's not just a mechanistic thing or a mechanical thing. Again, it's real, and it's intelligent, and it's meaningfulness. It's what you are made of, energizing itself. So all of these kinds of ways of being with the energy of experience very directly, is not just a dull or simple or stupid thing that you then need to do something with or make something of. Just that contact is itself a very intelligent engagement on the level that matters, which is the level of the inherent intelligence, not the level of the stupid thinking human mind, which is, idiotic and basically irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels kind of like you've, right now, it feels like you sort of pulled out the rug. And,
You're always saying that, Stan.
well, it's good. I just need to pull more along, I think. Yeah, because it feels like, it almost feels like a falling, but it's like, there's like no, I can't come up with a strategy and a starting point to investigate anything right now.
Well, there isn't any. That's
It's
the
kinda
point.
cool. I mean,
There
I'm not
isn't any
complaining.
strategy.
Yeah, I'm not
Anything you can think that you're doing or not doing, or anything you can think you can do, is essentially irrelevant. Because any doing that matters is inconceivable, and you're already doing it. So the trick is to sort of plug into your experience on that level. Just let yourself bootstrap yourself up into that way of being with it, which is already happening, so it's very easy to do. Just notice that, noticing. You notice that, experience is already being felt, presence is already being felt. Color is already being seen, sound is already being heard. And this is the presence of transformative, transcendental intelligence. And just that contact is like this amazing luminescence that you're plugged into. It vitalizes and informs and unfolds and heals and all this other stuff. Not by any intentionality or anything you're trying to do, but just inherently because of what it is.
Apropos what you were saying a few minutes ago, it's interesting that as my mind has relaxed its grip on preconceived ideas, it is interesting how much more creative I've become.
Oh yeah. When you stop trying, you can start doing. Yeah, we are transcendental wellsprings of pure creativity and pure intelligence. And when we impose a human personality and human motivations, it just takes all that and pretends to dumb it down and reduce it to its lowest common denominator. But when you just get out of the way and quit pretending to be anything in particular or be doing anything in particular, all of a sudden, there's all sorts of capability and productivity and creativity just can blossom. Another thing that we've explored in quite a bit by example, but haven't really talked about much explicitly, is the technique of the dominant technique of navigating through all of these seemings is by autosuggestion. So I do that a lot. A lot of times I'll be talking about something, and when I talk about something, it creates it as a virtual reality to some degree in your experience, and you sort of focus it and become to some degree that mode of whatever I am pointing to or indicating seems to suggest. So this is essentially This is the major way that consciousness navigates with itself. This is the way we were talking earlier about how you tie yourself in all these emotional knots and get stuck in emotions and stuff. This is the way that happens. Consciousness does that to itself through a kind of a virtual simulation of autosuggestion of simply telling itself that things are that way. And the nature of consciousness is so compliant to information that it simulates it as if it was that way and begins to feel that it is that way. So I can talk about, the inherent transcendental intelligence that just feeling experience does, and all of a sudden you turn into that, and it sort of it creates itself from that suggestion of its possibility to whatever extent it can. And so this is something that you can do for yourself. You can do it very deliberately and consciously. If there's something you want to explore, you sort of assume that you can do it and just tell yourself you're going to do it now. Like, I'm going to explore infinity now. You don't need to know how to do it. You just assume you do and assume you can and just tell yourself you are, and all of a sudden you're doing it. Or I'm going to explore, the depths of peace and quiet now. And all of a sudden, to some extent, that you sort of go there. And so you kind of create some degree of virtual reality simply by suggesting that you are. It's like a self-fulfilling fantasy in a way, but it's essentially the same thing it's the way hypnotism works. But hypnotism has got a bad rap because it's held to be some particular manipulative technique. In actual fact, anytime human consciousness engages with an idea, it's essentially hypnotic engagement. Because ideas are suggestions, and the consciousness is fluid enough that it adopts those suggestions and creates some virtual actuality of that. So if you're talking about mathematics, the mind all of a sudden simulates, it hypnotizes itself that is something and creates this whole engagement with it, and all of a sudden you're immersed in the world of mathematics. You talk about, anything, and all of a sudden the mind effortlessly creates a virtual simulation of that for itself, and all of a sudden that's what you're experiencing to some degree. And so this is very useful. This is a very powerful technique. So simply by contact with an idea that something is a certain way, it sort of becomes that. It's like priming the pump. The idea primes the pump, and then the consciousness goes to wherever it thinks that it is, in some way that ultimately will be revelatory. Because anywhere consciousness can go is revelatory, because consciousness is reality. So, we've been doing all kinds of virtual exploration just by all the stuff we've been talking about. As soon as we talk about something, you kind of go there, because that's the nature. Because again, through this sort of essentially auto-hypnotic mechanism, that's the nature. It's like a suggestion. As soon as there's an idea, the consciousness tries to see what that would be like, and simulates it and creates it as some degree of a reality for itself. And so during the course of this weekend, we've been going here, there, and we've been going all over the place like yo-yos or elevators or something, just by following the route of the conversation. And it doesn't need to go places that are logical. It doesn't need to go places that make sense. It doesn't need to go places that you know how to go there. It'll go anywhere. Consciousness is magical. So this is the basic mechanism of magic, is basically suggestion. You have an idea, and that serves as a seed that sort of programs consciousness to actualize that. And you can take advantage of this, any way you want, to explore the range of the possibilities of what this can look like. And more powerfully, playing with this is really valuable, because every single way that we get ourselves in trouble psychologically is due to this mechanism. And so when you discover this mechanism, it also can become the solution to all problems, because you discover, I've just been hypnotizing myself to be stuck in such and such and such, which doesn't really exist, but I'm creating it as existing through hypnosis. So I can eliminate it equally through hypnosis by just creating alternate conditions which aren't like that. I'm stuck. I'm a poor little being stuck in the problems of my life and I'll never get out from under and I wish they were different and so on and so forth. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and all of a sudden it feels like it's true. Or, oh, I am, transcendental radiant light that is beyond space and time and blah, blah. It's true, right? So this is very useful, needless to say. You can play with it it's kind of like, Star Trek. Number one, make it so. As soon as you just sort of put an idea in the mind tries to execute it, tries to take you there. And if you have wild enough abandon, you can take yourself to some pretty cool dimensions. Because the consciousness knows no limits. It's very happy to go places that are impossible to go. It's very happy to go to other dimensions. It's very happy to go to no dimension. It's very happy to go to there is no space and no time. It doesn't go anywhere. You just plant the seed and bang. See what happens.
I like it best when we were talking about original sin. Just kidding.
And again, you can notice that this same mechanism is how all human communication works. Someone says something to you, and the words that they say to you actually is a hypnotic suggestion that makes you recreate some virtual simulation of that in your imagination, and you experience that to some degree. So when you're talking to someone, you're basically throwing hypnosis back and forth at each other. Or you read a book. The book, say you read a novel, and so you find you're reading some novel of some mystery, and all of a sudden you're in the world of this mystery, and there's all these things going on, and you're getting all excited about it. It's hypnosis. The words are. It's essentially hypnotic suggestion, which creates that as an actuality experientially for you. And so this is just. Instead of being subject to that mechanism, you can use it yourself to proactively take advantage of that by planting your own seeds deliberately instead of just being a patsy and being wafted along on whatever seeds come your way.
Or got planted when you were an infant.
Yeah. I mean, all childhood infant programming and brainwashing and enculturation and all that consists of this. We've all been hypnotized into thinking things are the way they are and we are who we are. All our self-image problems and cultural problems and all status problems and all of that are pure and simple, completely constructed of this mechanism. Why don't we take a quick 5-minute break and keep it a real short one, and then we can do another 20 minutes or so. We have an airplane to catch, so we need to take off in a little while. That way we can get clear the cobwebs a little bit, and then we can have a little last minute whatever.
This is very glitchy, this YouTube thing. This YouTube thing is very glitchy.
Oh, yeah?
I keep having to refresh.
Did you get one from?
No, I got one a long time ago. It came with.
I wish we could find a better venue because I keep having to refresh.
Oh,
the chat room is not a problem, because I don't have to refresh that.
Are you in Safari or are you in?
Oh, in Safari.
Oh,
I probably do have a problem, don't I?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get them.
Did you try the cake thing? You should try it now that it's warm. I mean, that it's out of the fridge, you should try it.
Say hi to everyone.
I actually like the blue, because I like the blue color.
Hi, Peter.
Saying hi to all the future people too.
Hi, John.
Give them some money.
Hi, future people that don't exist yet.
Right?
Yeah. One thing.
Time passed, dead people too.
It's like a time machine.
Yeah, like a time machine, that's right.
So,
This is a
You
time
got it?
machine.
it could
Oh,
be
sure.
that the problem you're
Alright.
having is because you're using the same channel.
Okay.
No, I think it's because I am using Safari instead of Chrome. And
Okay.
YouTube belongs to Google, Chrome
Yeah.
belongs to Google. and,
Yeah, it all
You know, they're
starts
gonna
playing
make their
nice
own
together.
programs easier and the
Yeah,
foreign programs they're not gonna worry about.
there, may not work.
It's all very business worldish. But hey, I don't care one way or the other. Is that a skylight or a bulb?
That's a skylight,
Yeah.
right? It's a skylight?
It's a tube, they call it a tube. Yeah, it lets in natural light, I like it a lot. Makes the center of the room a little brighter, that's why the lighting in here is so good on the camera. Doesn't require a whole lot of artificial lights. I am tired. Cute little giant buttons.
That was pretty spectacular.
Huh?
That was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
today's been
Today's
a
really
particularly
good.
good day, hasn't it?
Yeah, really good.
Yesterday was great too, though.
Yeah, it
The
was.
stars are lined up right. That's my
Yeah, they are.
reasoning.
Yesterday afternoon, Claude me up, but I wrote, emailed him about it, but it's all kind of
Did he
cleared up.
respond?
No, he hasn't seen it yet.
Oh, yeah, probably not.
Like, a lot of it cleared up today, so.
Yeah. Well, yesterday was
Morning was great.
concise and concentrated and to the point.
Yeah.
I guess those are all the same idea, redundant, but in today's,
No, the morning was-
today's the knee-jerk
Yeah.
reaction to all that. To the pill, the blue pill or is it the red pill? Which one do I want to take? I can never remember which is the pill that gets you out of the matrix and which one leaves you in.
I don't
The
remember
blue
which
pill
is
is the
which.
one that leaves you in the matrix,
The,
right?
the purple pill is the Buddhist pill. It's the middle.
The purple pill. is
The middle,
Buddhist.
oh,
Middle way.
between blue and red, yeah, right.
Thanks, been there, done that.
Yeah.
Wish I hadn't. Waste of time. I guess nothing's a waste of time. You get here where you are.
Yeah, but
You
whatever
did.
it is, yeah,
Whatever got you here is how you're here. So
yep, pretty much.
if you could even put it that way, so doesn't matter a whole lot.
Mm-mm. It's just babbling.
Or especially good then. Uh-oh. Did it drip?
It's open.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yes, oh
It's
yes,
fine.
should have been closed.
Looks like it.
That's why there's a closing thing on these things.
no.
Oh, it dripped a lot. Good lord. Okay, let's get a bunch of paper towels. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's step in it.
No.
Okay, there it is. Yes.
That grater is terrific. You can get those.
Do you need more?
I'm sure you can get it elsewhere. That's the only place. I got one ages ago before these showed up at IKEA.
Let's get this. Where these up? All right. Later.
It's Indian
One more.
show.
There. Perfect.
It is cane sugar. Yeah, it is cane sugar. I think so.
It's rock and sugar, but the Indians have a way of processing
Yeah.
it to make it come out like that, which is different from other kinds.
Makes it come out real yummy.
Very, very tasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got richness.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like a tough food.
Yeah.
That's a lot of flavor.
Sweetener treats don't allow for a lot of walking. That's why I prefer the residential ones.
The Mexicans have them as similar.
Residential, like in Joshua Tree.
I love the residential. That's to me the best.
Yeah, it is.
It
This
is.
is a
Because there's
particular
breaks
brand.
throughout the day that are
You
long.
can actually get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, the retreat center itself has a campsite. Oh, really? And it has apparently very nice showers and bathrooms and stuff near the campsite. Just make a campsite.
Yes, I still very small.
Yeah. The only thing they don't allow is pets. If you bring anyone or anything else. And just tell Pam about it. There's a Pam to, there's a link to Pam on your website, right, Peter?
Link to what? Yeah, go to my website, there's a page that says retreats. And under the retreat, there's a link you can email for more information and so on.
Okay. How's late? How's late?
I guess he's okay, I don't know.
What's Ramir?
Oh. Her cutting, oh, in the early days, yes. In the early days, she was like, strong Christian crew and all that, yeah. But they eventually convinced her. Now she organizes the retreats.
I know, I saw that.
When Jeff was organizing the one in Virginia, Pam was put off a little bit. Like, well, I'm the retreat organizer. He said, well, not in Doylestown, that's where I live. Well, what would you know about old Doylestown? Come on.
And your age.
Share the glory.
You're like a festival. We are about to be doing a festival.
Moderator sort of, but YouTube is not real user friendly. Yeah, he's already recording it as an the YouTube. Yeah. I moderate, there's a chat room in YouTube. And in the past anyway, people used to ask questions, Peter, and I would read it. But mostly just sharing the joy.
That's good.
And I love sharing the joy, so I'm good with that. Yeah. No,
So,
I played mom on
Hey, you know, I
this
got
particular show.
a little bit of good.
So you see, right, I'm joyful
Here. I probably ought to
Well, I
told you.
say, behave yourself.
It's about the paper microscope. You heard of
They
this?
started fooling around and I go, okay,
Yeah,
listen, you
the
pay
team at
attention or not?
Stanford has created a $1 microscope.
No, they're
It
just
has
having
2,000
fun.
power.
I love this
So that
idea
you
that
can
I
see
Now,
can
Rhoda's
explore
telling me
infinity.
she's
viruses and bacteria and stuff.
I love the way you
They
did
made it
that.
out of
It says opens
paper
up a
and it
whole
runs
world.
flat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can do it yourself.
Big long-
Yeah.
And then
Just
you
assume you can.
fold it like origami.
Yeah, right.
You've got this
Why
mic.
not?
And
Prove
they even like
prove I
put it
can.
against the
Yeah.
wall and project it like a projector. Not like it's real bright, because it's just a little LED and a battery. But,
I think we should use
They
Fuse,
sent out
some
50,000.
format.
and they've also sent some to clinics in
Yeah.
Africa
And
and
we
such,
can have so
clinics
the
around the
only
world.
person on the screen is
It's like
Fuse. Fuse, we can have
$1,
12 people.
made out of paper.
Wow.
It's like, if you were to go into the past, go back a few years, and you're gonna think about all the inventions that could be used. Anyone would ever come up with a paper.
You have to have a number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So how
The silver,
And-
the lenses are from
Peter's
some
website,
drops
the number
of,
there.
I think they
And then
called
you
it a
can
glue.
set up the only
But
Peter's
anyway,
show.
it's a drop of plastic.
When you do a
And it
smaller
forms a
amusement,
perfect
people can-
lens.
And they come
Turn
flat
on it.
inside there.
And they're flat inside the thing.
And see each other.
Yeah, oh yeah, he dropped it from
Yeah, like a
3
video
stories
call.
up. He stomped on it a
It can
bunch
be
of
done
times.
just a single person.
I thought you were
The
gonna
guy has a
say,
temper.
yeah, I thought you were gonna say that
That's
you
what I thought.
could download it.
And this actually kind
Oh.
of refresh it. And
No,
now
you couldn't do
Rhoda
that.
tells
It
me she's
requires
having to
that
refresh it a lot too.
Whatever they've
How
got
much
to
money
make
she's
the
do you
using
lens.
want for the
Chrome.
news, though?
I think it's
So
like
obviously,
50
using
to
Chrome doesn't
75
help.
cents.
Boy, that could be amazing. Distributed to clinics all over.
Oh, yeah, schools.
Oh, it could be, you mean that the Wi-Fi here isn't fast enough.
What's cool about it
Maybe I
is it's
should have put
already
this
out
on my
there.
own house.
Because I told it to one of my cynical friends, and she says, you just watch the corporations come in and stomp on that, you know, it's like, nope, sorry, it's already out there.
So Larry,
Oh, well, next time.
when you drank all the water.
Yeah.
It was, you were, you went
Okay,
out
let's try it
for
for
3
each
minutes and you
time.
drank all of it.
Oh, right.
I guess that's yesterday.
Drink all that water.
Go turn it off. Let's see if that helps. Yesterday.
I had a coffee with you.
But these are, these are.
All right.
Yeah, no.
Good. All right.
You pay microscope scan. Yeah. Is that your alma mater?
So we're back.
Mhm.
All right, let's take it home. Oh, where are we? Is this home? Is this not home?
Where are we and what are we doing here?
So I'd like to finish with where we started, which is, of course, where we've been all along, which is with this actuality that is here. And all of the astounding aspects that it is available in, that it presents as, that it has as its interface with itself, as all of the ways it seems to be to itself, as this, always being just itself, right? And everything, all the different aspects, all the aspects of life, all the possible aspects that can conceivably occur in life are nothing other than ramifications of this being the way it is. And so exploring that directly is going to the fountain of life itself. It's going to the fullness of all possibilities and being with that most directly, most nakedly. And that's all we've been talking about. And all of these vastly different aspects and ins and outs and approaches to it and ways it can be and so on and so forth is all implicit just in its own nature, as plain to be seen, but just clearly in this itself and what it is. And the most powerful fact that there's no particular way that it is. It's not. It has absolutely no bias to need to be one way or another way. All the different ways it can seem to be are equally viable, equally valid, equally true. So you have complete license, complete open possibility and flexibility in terms of how you want to be with it, how you want to explore it. It's, the only limits are on the nature of what you happen onto or stumble onto it and come up with as ways of playing with it. Any aspect of what we've talked about or what we've been working with this past weekend that feels a little unclear or incomplete, or you have any questions about or anything?
Well, up to this point, that I felt like it was the most important thing for me was recognition, to recognize this.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds quite easy because it's always this, always been like this. And once you not do anything, and there it is. Sounds so easy, but from my first recognition, it was 6 years ago. I was just looking at an article on on internet. Then all of a sudden I realized, oh, this is what is being pointed at. Then I went out to walk for 2 hours and just keep seeing all this. And yeah, it is this, it is this.
Mm-hmm.
But then I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
I started chasing.
Sure.
And then I see it again. I said, oh yes, this is it. Then I forgot again, started chasing again. Now I see it. Yeah, this. It is this. It is this. So, before you recognize what is being pointed at this, and you just have a goose chasing, and you spend so much energy and you go nowhere. You just keep chasing it until you really recognize it. But after you really recognize it, and then will be, you see more and more and increasing the sensitivity or something. What I don't know. So I wanted to talk about a little bit more about the recognition and more emphasize on, yesterday the day before yesterday in the restaurant, I was asking about this. Not thinking, because once you've seen it, once you recognize it, is when you don't have any effort.
Right.
That of course is the beginning phases, but later on it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But since I'm still in the early stages, so is there what kind of recommendation you can?
Sure. Well, first of all, recognition of what this is happens to everyone very, very frequently. But for most people, it's not appreciated what is happening. It's not acknowledged as the profundity that it is. And typically, one just feels like they spaced out or well, where was I just now, and come back, get back to focus, get back to work, get back, engage with things. Recognition of what this is, which is simply nothing other than what it is that is here. Is only complicated by when you think you already know what it is, when you're thinking is this or that, or is it this way or that way, some way of subtly or subliminally, usually unconsciously, supposing that it is a certain way. Because what this is not any particular way. It's very strange in its nature because there's no one way that it is. It itself is simultaneously not anything in particular, while being everything in particular, very strangely. And so, which is not a normal, it's not an acknowledged typical human mindset. In human normalcy, you're supposed to have a handle on things. You're supposed to know what things are. You're supposed to know who you are. You're supposed to know what's going on. And all of that, of course, is fabrication and is imaginary. The actual condition is a condition of not knowing what's going on, not knowing anything other than this actuality. And so that, of course, is the mind frame, the mindset within which recognition occurs. Now, the good news is that everyone is having recognitions all the time. They're just not generally appreciated, so they're not, participated in particularly powerfully. The nice thing about recognition, when you have a recognition and you recognize the recognition, you go, wow, oh wow, this is it, yeah, is that recognition builds on itself. So with any degree of recognition, there will sooner or later become a subsequent recognition, and that recognition will become easier and more strongly and more clear and so on and so forth, just because with recognition, as with anything, one learns how to do it by doing it. So the more often you have a recognition that is a recognized recognition, the more deeply and easily and perhaps more frequently you will have subsequent recognitions that are recognized as recognition. So it sort of builds up momentum, like a snowball rolling downhill or something. And again, one learns the artfulness of being loose, of being easy, of being playful, of not being too locked in, not being too constructed or held, which of course is inimical to the nature of this. Not that it's inimical to the nature of this, but in that mode, it tends to, because of this auto-hypnotic mechanism, if you're holding it to be a certain way, it tends to be that way, which is, which can seem to limit what it actually is. even though that is what it actually is. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's obviously very paradoxical and slippery. So, in short, recognition is good. Here it is, and it's not anything in particular. And when you can find yourself into a mode of not anything in particular, you resonate with it and you recognize it. So the whole trick is relax, be loose, be easy, be playful, be like, don't be too serious, don't be too dutiful, don't be too process-oriented. And you will find yourself in recognition. So the more you're with, the more you are in its inherent nature of ambiguity and lusciousness and spontaneity, the more it will be obvious to you that it is that.
Yeah, I don't know if this is an answerable question. Why is there so much forgetfulness about this whole nature of actuality? There's so often we have to remind ourselves and the need to remind the others. The world itself seems to be very numb as far as understanding.
The forgetfulness is due largely to obsession with, well, first of all, the habit, and second of all, to human obsession with pretending to know what's going on. You know, as human beings are very early on are trained, brainwashed essentially, in the urgency of knowing what's going on. You know, you're trained. Your name is such and such. You're a boy or a girl. You live at such and such. You know, you're a human being. You're this. You're that. You're other. And as compliant children, our nature, because of our instincts to mimic our family and mimic our tribe, to become good members of that tribe, by our biological instinct, we naturally mimic all this stuff, and we think it's important to be this because it's being presented to us as if it's important to be this. And of course, we innocently buy it hook, line, and sinker. So we get seduced into a mindset of thinking, I know, oh, I'm Peter Brown and I live in California and this, that, and the other, and I'm a, you know, whatever political party I am, and I think this and I think that, and my favorite color is such and such. I mean, all of these specifics that we're sort of encouraged to be able to regurgitate and identify with as part of our life. All of this is very alien to the inherent nature of what this is. So as long as we have, you know, a habitual orientation to this kind of a very heavily defined persona and very heavily defined identification, it's contrary to the way this actually is, and so is hence contrary to recognizing this in its true guise as it actually is. And this is, you know, the spiritual dilemma in a nutshell. You know, it's hard to realize you're not anybody because you think you are somebody. And it's really just a matter of habit and also reinforcement, because you know, as a human being, typically you're in a semantic environment where you're being bombarded with other information supporting the fact that you're a human being. Everyone else around you is busy pretending to be a human being. All the words and signs and advertisements and news articles are about human beings being human beings, none of which is actually true or accurate, but it all is reinforcing that perspective. So, you know, you're continually in a barrage of sort of Pavlovian reinforcement of this normal human mode of you know, the urgency of defining yourself and the urgency of defining what you're doing and why you're doing it and all those kinds of things, none of which have very much to do with what this actually is and the way it actually works. So as long as one is obsessed with that approach to it, you know, one is sort of not resonant with its native mode, and hence it's harder to recognize.
I'd like to add to that speaking from my own upbringing, I'm sure it applies to some other people, that another aspect of that is that if you don't know, then you pretend to know.
Sure.
And so there, you know.
Well, it's worse than that. No one does know, and everyone knows they don't know.
And
everyone feels an urgency to not let anyone else know that.
Right,
So
right.
each of us knows we don't know. Each of us knows we've been faking it all along. We've been pretending to be who we are. We don't know who we are. And everyone else is doing the same thing, but we don't know they're faking it. We think they all say they know, and so we think, oh, everyone else knows who they are, and I'm clueless. I'm the only one. So everyone's walking around with this intense paranoia and fearfulness of I'm faking
Everybody
it.
else has it but me.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I need to fake it because it's really urgent that I know, or else they'll all point fingers at me and lock me up, or shoot me, or stone me, or nail me to a cross,
Exactly.
or whatever. Right?
Yeah, that.
Absolutely, all that. And it's paradoxical because in actuality, for us, no one knows who they are, and everyone's faking it. And yet, this is the human game, and it's being reinforced and being portrayed with an urgency. It's really urgent that you take a side, that you be somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to not be anybody in particular. You're supposed to be somebody.
Yeah.
And if you aren't, pretend.
Yeah, or else you
Don't
get
let
in
anyone
trouble.
know you don't know, or you
Yeah.
get locked up, or beat up, or robbed, or whatever.
Yeah.
So where did all this human bombardment come from, or is it just the nature of the beast?
Okay, this feels real, but it also feels off. This idea, okay, so this is the locus of awareness. Like I'm moving through the world, but no, that's not what's going on. The world's moving through me. I turn my head. It's not my eyes moving across, it's the world turning for me.
Right.
So now I got someone over here on my side that's walking the other direction, another locus. And that's all occurring for them as well. So this is
No,
occurring here.
no, it's not.
No.
Have you ever experienced another locus?
No.
How many locuses have you ever experienced? And you're it. You're the sole locus as far as you're concerned. You can hypothesize that maybe there are other loci,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But that's just a hypothesis. It's a fantasy. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Maybe other people exist in me, but I can't know that. So be pragmatic. Work with what you know. Don't jump to conclusions of other people actually exist. Maybe they do, but you can't know it. So why conclude that it's the case? And it's not a matter of saying the conclusion that other people don't exist. It's just a question mark. It's undefined. Maybe everyone you've ever talked to in your dreams really exists. And when you dream, you somehow, beam interdimensionally into other dimensions with other beings that are actually there. And who knows? That's a hypothesis. It's a possibility, right? You can't disprove it, but you can't know it. So it would be foolish to assume, simplistically that it's, oh, that's how it is. It could be like that, so that's how it is.
Right.
It could be like that, so it could be like that. And so there's all of these coulds. It could be like that, or it could be that everyone else is a robot controlled by alien mind control, and you're the only independent one, and they're all trying. Who knows? All the paranoid fantasies might be true, but they're all just hypotheses. So there's no basis for leaping to the conclusion that any one or another of them is true. But you have the immediate pragmatic reality that the one locus that you have immediate self-verifying evidence of is actual. So work with that. Work with the reality. It's a reality check. Work with what is actual, and let what might be the case take care of itself. And then it simplifies things enormously.
Yeah.
It's a matter of holding things the way they actually appear to be, rather than stretching your perspective to hold them somewhere they might be, which is not natural to what they immediately appear to be. So start with the way it immediately appears to be, and work with that. And then see if that's inadequate, if you need to elaborate on that. But I think you'll find that it isn't. Because what this is turns out to be a simplicity. Even though it presents with this bewildering infinity of apparent complexity, it's actually a simplicity. So simplifying the way you're approaching it is coming more and more simply and more comprehensively to what it is. When you discover, oh, you are the sole actual locus of experience, and everything appears as an energy to that within that experience. It's a very simple system all of a sudden. Whereas this complex system, oh my God, there's infinite locuses of experience, and they're all, and they're all like, that's just, it's too complicated. What do you do with that? Whereas the manifest, explicit, obvious fact of the presence of this locus of experience, and the fact that all of reality appears to and as this locus of experience, all of a sudden you have everything. The whole thing's right there, and then you can be with that in that guise, and see the implications and follow it. Do the math, follow out the nuances. And I think you'll find that that approach alone is completely sufficient. You don't need to have recourse to all of these complexities and so on and so forth. So I'm going to be quitting in about 5 minutes, I think. We have to go get a flight and yell at authorities and have people with guns push us around and stuff like that.
What fun.
So soon?
So in order to allow plenty of time for that, we'll need to take that. So in about 5 minutes, we're going to knock off. So to reiterate, just the one thing that is actually right here, just exactly the way it is. Let it be what it is, and let it show you what it is, and quit telling it what it is. Because you're wrong, it's right. And it wins and you lose, and that's a good thing. To lose to reality is to win. So let reality win, because it already has one, so you may as well give up the fight. Anyway, enough silliness. Any last minute observations, questions, concerns, anxieties, advertisements?
Just gratitude. Yeah.
In this moment, I feel like I am this experience, and nothing is happening to me.
Of course.
Yeah, just feels that simple.
This that's here is always here, and it's always this. It always looks different, but it's always this that's here, which is always this.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah.
It looks different.
Is it just me, or I thought we were scheduled a little bit longer?
Well, the schedule is flexible. Unfortunately, we have an airplane we have to catch. So. We've covered a lot of ground this weekend, and we haven't gone anywhere, which is the nature of this beast, and that's really the point, is to notice that however far you go, you don't go anywhere. And that turns out to be a really good thing. So anyway, thank you all for participating, and enjoy yourselves. And I will see you when I see you, if I see you.
Thank you for braving the men with guns to get here.